Pop in! On today's episode 39 of the BOWTIEGUY podcast, I want to talk to you today about Georgia's teacher dropout crisis. We're going to take a look at why nearly half of Georgia public school teachers are leaving, doing the dip on the profession. Now, this is based on a report presented by the Georgia Department of Education in December of 2015. With the name Stephen J. Owens stamped on the top. Now, it starts out with a quote from a Franklin County middle school teacher who apparently had been teaching for 20 years. Something must be done. Education is in a major crisis. So why in the Blue Moon of Kentucky are approximately 44% of public school teachers in the state leaving? Why are they leaving the whole system of education within 5 years of employment? Now, this survey was conducted from over 53,000 educators, and it was well distributed as well because you had 26,603 surveys given from an elementary perspective. You had almost 12,000 surveys given from a middle school perspective. Those are teachers who taught at the middle school. And then at the high school level, we had 13,773 surveys that were submitted on SurveyMonkey, which is a website that it conducts anonymous surveys. So I remember specifically having this survey being volleyed out. I remember I did participate in this, and because at that particular time, I think I was at year 7, so I had already superseded the 5-year expectation. Now, the one caveat, the one little nugget of information that I absolutely adored and loved from this study is that more than teachers that had been teaching more than 30 years, that was a huge demographic of 1,699. So one thing I absolutely love and adore and respect from the system of education is the experienced teachers. And you know what? Some of you may think, "Well, the only experienced teachers I know are cranky." Well, you know what? They've seen a lot. They've seen the cyclical nature of education. How things come, things go, things come back, things go again. And you know what? They're tired. And so, but I love this almost 1,700 teachers that have been teaching for over 30 years. They dedicated their time, their energy, their efforts in this survey to give their thoughts about why teachers are leaving the profession before they hit the 5-year mark, or that's within the first 5 years of employment. Now, the first question that was submitted from this SurveyMonkey: if you had a student about to graduate from high school, how likely would you be to encourage teaching as a profession? Folks, I know it's going to blow your minds, but 2.7% out of the 53,000 that submitted the survey, only 2.7% said they were very likely to refer a graduate from high school to pursue a career in education. Only 12.2% said likely. And then you had 18.2% that was indifferent. They were neither likely or unlikely. But the thing that's going to pop and lock and rock you, baby, is the fact that 68% of the 53,000 surveys that had been collected, 68% said that they were unlikely or very unlikely to recommend teaching as a profession to a graduate from high school. Now, this is just crazy. And I have a quote right here from a teacher from Gwinnett County. This particular teacher had been teaching for over 25 years. This teacher said that teachers are often blamed and held accountable for things that they have absolutely no control over. This teacher said that I love my time with my students, but I would never choose this path again, which makes me very sad. Now, there were 8 possible causes to this epidemic in the state of Georgia. The question that was given, it says, in Georgia, 47% of teachers leave the profession within 5 years. The survey suggested a ranking of 8 possible causes in terms of most prominent and least prominent. The most prominent was the number and emphasis of mandated tests. And the next, number 2, was teacher evaluation method. Okay, and I've always struggled with this because I've always just had a feeling that teacher evaluations were completely subjective, where they should have been objective, where if a good teacher took the time to create evidence, to have substantial data, information, infographics, whatever the case may be, anecdotal records to support each and every standard to which they're being evaluated, then the subjective nature of this just needs to be thrown out because, you can't call apples oranges or oranges apples. It needs to be apples and apples. And there needs to be fidelity within the evaluation process as well. Number 3, the level of teacher participation in decisions related to profession. I know that this is a very heart-wrenching issue, especially to me, because the system of which I formerly belonged to went through the entire process of becoming a charter system, not a charter school, not a myriad of these other things that are represented in the state, no, but a charter system, which is an agreement. It's a contract with the state, the Georgia Department of Education. It gives the county, the district, more autonomy. And to waive it gives them a waiver for many state laws and for many, things that have been the case for a very long time in the state of Georgia. They could waive these things, and because in exchange for increased achievement, they were given the right to waive certain waivers. And I can get into that in another episode. But because of the lack of participation, that was a huge cause for public school teacher attrition. How about number 4, non-teaching school duties and responsibilities? Teachers in the state of Georgia are salaried in the fact if they work at a public school, they have a salary. And the thing is that we all know that teachers work well above and beyond the hours of which children are at the school. But there's a huge cry for, some respect, some leniency on the duties and responsibilities outside of the school hours, which is 8 hours or 7.5 hours. Now, number 5, we have level of benefits and compensation. That was a cause for public school teacher attrition. Now, many teachers believe that the amount of work that is conducted by the teacher is not equitable to the benefits or compensation that is given to the teacher. So they pretty much feel like they're not getting paid enough, or they're not being represented enough with benefits such as insurance or retirement, etc. The next cause of public school teacher attrition is the level and quality of support, resources, and professional learning. What can you say to that? I'd love to hear your opinion from my podcast listeners. You can shoot me an email at bowtieguy24@gmail.com. That is bowtieguy24@gmail.com, or Horton, HORTON, edu@gmail.com. That's hortonedu@gmail.com. Shoot me an email, and I'd love to know your thoughts about this. Number 7 on the list, school level and district level leadership. There seems to be a level of inadequacy from the perspective of the 53,000 submissions for this survey, that there is an inadequacy or discrepancy or inefficiency of school level and district level leadership. And so the last cause, which I think is not really represented well today in 2019, but the level of preparation when entering the profession. I think this is heading in the direction of being highly qualified for the position, but I can tell you from my own perspective that I did not feel prepared for education leaving college. You can field experience someone to death, but you can't teach the real thing until it's the real thing. Can I get a hallelujah on that? Now, this is what an elementary school teacher from Henry County said. Okay, this is a direct quote from the study. There's a growing sense of frustration among teachers that testing is now the focus rather than teaching. People become teachers knowing the pay is low, but they do not expect to spend so much time doing what often amounts to meaningless assessments. Teachers want to make a difference, and they do not know Teachers want to make a difference, and they do not do that just by giving mandated tests. I agree with this particular teacher. Now, here's a quote about the teacher evaluation method. Currently in the state of Georgia, teachers are evaluated using TEKS, and administrators and leaders within the county or district, they're measured with LEAKS. So you have TEKS and LEAKS. TEKS stands for Teacher Keys Effectiveness System. It utilizes student achievement and growth as a significant percentage to measure teacher effectiveness. But the subjectivity of this evaluation is something that makes me rather uncomfortable. Now, this is a high school teacher for over 25 years from Fayette County. This is a direct quote from the study. Teachers are only 1/3 of the equation. You have teacher, student, parent. That results in student performance. Because we are only part of the equation that can be legislated and poorly quantified, we bear the burden of proof. It's too tenuous and burdensome. That is one reason I have not encouraged my 2 college graduates to teach. Wow, that is crazy, explicit, and real and authentic from this teacher from Fayette. And plus, this teacher has 25 years to boot of experience, so I'm pretty sure that he or she knows exactly what they're talking about. Now, let's go ahead and shift on to the next question we have right here. We have the third question, which is, please list any additional reasons why you believe 47% of the teachers in Georgia leave the profession within 5 years. This is a high school teacher out of Columbia. The profession has become less and less encouraging. It expects a lot in return and maintains a punitive culture that essentially strikes fear, anxiety, and burnout. Can I get a hallelujah on that? All right. Unsurprisingly, given the previous literature on teacher attrition, you know what? Issues with student discipline were mentioned as one of the top causes of the high rate. You had student discipline, accountability, and behavior were mentioned in the 18.6% of the answers. What is surprising is that words associated with discipline were mentioned less than those related to time. That's 19.4% of answers. Responses included a lack of support, that's 17.6%, from parents, leaving the instructors to blame for all of the possible student issues. As the profession currently stands, teachers reported feeling disrespected at 12.4% and stressed out at 9.7% by the workload and the general feeling of having just no control or autonomy. That is mentioned in over 2,000 responses out of the 53,000 submissions in or outside the classroom. Interestingly enough, more responses mentioned holding those in government responsible than the media, school principals, or district superintendents combined. Holy hootenanny. So I want to read this discussion, and no one likes to be read to, but I want to wrap up this episode by giving you exactly what the Georgia Department of Education gave us as a conclusion, as a sense of concluding notes and discussion points and nuggets of reflection. Taken by itself, a 44% dropout rate is a statistic that calls for action. The fact that 2/3 of teachers surveyed would not recommend teaching as a profession may predict this problem compounding in the future with disastrous effects to the state of education in Georgia. Education's place as central to our society guarantees that teacher shortages would affect the entire state. This report is not equipped to inform specific policy recommendations, although decision makers would do well to take results like these very seriously. Almost all reforms within public schools rely on implementation efforts of the classroom teacher. For this reason, those in power that want to influence education in any way must consider the educator's perspective. Georgia's public school educators responded unequivocally that standardized tests and the current teacher evaluation method are 2 of several factors that they believe are pushing teachers away from the profession. Thankfully, many of these factors are legislated and therefore amendable, so this can be changed. Georgia's poor high school dropout rate has finally been given a serious issue in the need of long and short-term action. Teacher retention in the state must be given similar attention. In any given 5-year period, nearly half of the state's professional public educators drop out of the classroom. It is time for this fact to be viewed for what it is, a problem that is quickly becoming a crisis. State and local leaders must be and might be advised to invite teachers to the table for discussion on these issues before Georgia has to contemplate education without its educators. Now, I want to leave you with this little nugget. Necessity is the mother of all invention. If public school doesn't work out, what's next? I want you to think. Read between the lines. Do you see developments such as the Georgia Virtual School, I guess in the privatized sector? Do you see more homeschooling parents that are homeschooling their students? Do you see more private schools? Do you see more charter schools that will elicit private funding or public funding, for that matter, from the state, but also from private donors as well? Now, I want to leave you with just a positive note in the fact that, necessity is the mother of all invention, and the fact that if there is a problem, you have a choice, okay? You could stand for something, or maybe you could fall for anything. So, tell me your thoughts on this. Hit me up at my email that I mentioned earlier in the podcast, bowtieguy24@gmail.com or hortonedu@gmail.com. You can hit us up on Facebook, Instagram. You can follow us on Twitter. You can hit us up in our mini ideas, the Bowtie Guy and Wife, on Pinterest, and feel free to check out our YouTube channel for many exciting videos you can share with your students. Check us out at our Teachers Pay Teacher store. That is Bowtie Guy and Wife. Thank you so much for watching. We'll check you out in the next episode. Pop in. See you later.